Hey, this is Carl with another SOP video for managed service providers. Today I want to talk about the 10 great truths about backup. Are you ready? Truth number 1. Backup is not disaster recovery. Backup is great and in fact is used much more frequently than disaster recovery. It's much more likely that people will accidentally delete something or break something than it is that you will have a hard drive failure or that an office will be flooded or have a hazmat situation or something like that. So backups have a different purpose than disaster recovery. All backup plans should include some kind of disaster recovery planning, but they are not exactly the same thing. So remember that, and remember that the backup needs to be much more usable than a disaster recovery plan. So rule number 2 is we build backups with disaster recovery in mind. So we know that that is something that will happen far less frequently, but we do need to be prepared for it. Where does your backup fit with your disaster recovery plan? Truth number 3, and people don't want to hear this, backups generally don't fail. Technicians fail. Invariably, when I find somebody complaining about, oh, tape doesn't work, or this failed or that failed, it used to be I could always guarantee that I was dealing with a technician who didn't understand SCSI. Well, SCSI's been gone for most of us for a very, very long time, so you can't use that excuse anymore. Now it's technicians who don't understand USB, technicians who don't understand timing, technicians who don't test their systems, technicians who do all kinds of things wrong, but they get to blame the backup system. Man, very, very few backup systems actually fail. Technicians, they fail all the time. So it's extremely important that you have good training, that your technicians have good training, and that you provide as much consistency as you can so that they actually know how to use these systems. So that leads to truth number 4. Your technicians must be trained. They must absolutely understand every single piece of the backup process. The easiest way I think to do this is to test backups every month, because that way your technicians touch every backup system that you have. They see it on a regular basis, and they are not faced with trying to make decisions and do some training during a crisis. So keep them up to speed and they will perform much, much better in an emergency. Truth number 5, you gotta rotate your backup media. Well, why is that and what is that? First of all, whether it's tapes or discs or whatever, you have to rotate your media. One of the golden rules about backup is that the first tape or hard drive you use won't be good. That backup may have failed. The electricity might have gone out in the middle of the backup. You might have a blip on a certain area of a hard drive, and that's the part that you need to restore. That falls into the stuff happens category, but it's why you need to have multiple points of restore. You need to have backups that you keep for a long time. So rotating that backup guarantees that you don't overwrite the same media too many times. The old, like antique grandfather, father, son backup, I rejected that the first day that I was put in charge of backups in 1993. It is so obviously wrong because you end up rewriting to those 3 sets of media for the rest of your life. It's just a stupid thing to do. So you got to rotate that media so it's actually usable. That means that media has to go off-site. Now, I love having an end-of-month snapshot of the entire business. So that's a great way to rotate media. You take a snapshot, you say this copy of your data goes into long-term storage with all of your end-of-month data, and this end-of-year media goes off-site. Yes, that costs money, and if you're using DLT tapes or something like that, it may cost a few $100s a month, a few $1,000s a year. But generally, you're talking about a business that is worth many, many millions of dollars, and there better be a budget for a reasonable backup. Otherwise, you better be able to afford going out of business. Rule number 6, you should have as many point-in-time backups as possible. We all generally have some automated systems at our fingertips, right? Microsoft will store a couple of versions of everything on the server a couple of times a day. That's cool if you configure it and you know it's actually there. It's also nice to know that you've got a full backup every single day and every single week and every single month. More than once, I have clients come to me and say, we have this report that we run once a quarter. Somebody did something and broke the Excel spreadsheet that we rely on 7 months ago. And so the last quarter's report was bad, and this quarter's report will be bad if we don't go restore that, right? They know that they got a problem. Well, if you got 3 backups, if you have 5 copies, if you don't have anything that's more than 3 months old, you're in trouble because you can't help your client. Your backup must match the true needs of the client, not the client's perceived needs. Because remember, the client is not in this business. They literally do not understand what you do for a living. And what you do for a living is make sure that their business can stay in business. Number 7, you have to have enough media to have all the restore points you needed in number 6. So if you need to restore things, let's say, on an hourly basis, you better make sure that you've got enough media to be able to do that. And again, if you don't test, then you can't just rely on some imaging system to know that you're going to be able to go back to a specific moment in time and restore that data. If you don't need anything more granular than once a week or once a month, that's great. That's super easy to do, but you still have to have enough media to be able to do that. If you've got a terabyte of storage, then you need a terabyte times as many full backups as you need. And this whole thing of, oh yeah, we're going to do a differential. Trust me, there will be a problem with relying on that for dozens of restore points. So document the number of restore points you actually need and then verify that you have the hardware that you need to get that job done. Whether it's on site, in the cloud, BDR, whatever it is, you got to map that out. And don't just flip a switch and let the thing go. That's guaranteed to not work when the stuff hits the fan. I alluded to this before, but truth number 8, the first media that you try to restore from will fail. Who knows why? This is Murphy's Law. It's just one of those things. It's not always true, but if you assume it's going to be true, it will help you design better backup systems. If you say, well, okay, let's just, get that image off the BDR. Oh, I'm sorry. The BDR ran out of disk space during the last imaging, because Murphy runs the show. Whatever the issue might be, something is going to cause the most recent media to have a problem. And when that happens, you need to make sure your system is good enough so that you can go back and get the media before that. Rule number 9 is probably realistically the number 1 rule of all time. If you don't test your backup, you don't have a backup. So many times I talk to people who say, we had a client that had a tape drive fail or had a backup to disk fail. Now we don't know whether or not any of our backups are good, and we have to go test that at all of our clients. And all I can think of is, what? Testing backup by restoring from backup should be absolutely part of every single monthly maintenance checklist. It is the single most important thing you do for your clients, is restore from backup. Because at the end of the day, when there's a ransomware, when they get hit with ransomware in the office that they've set up as an emergency because their first office was flooded, you need to be able to perform absolutely and definitively up to spec. And the only way that you can do that is if you have a great backup plan that's well designed and tested on a regular basis. And I don't trust a BDR that says, oh, we're going to build up an image, we're going to mount that, we're going to take a snapshot, and we're going to send you a JPEG. Sorry, I need your technicians to log into that system, mount that media, and verify that they can log into it. That's the only way that you can guarantee that you can actually restore from that backup. And snapshots are great, and that's good on a daily basis, check the box. But once a month, somebody in your office needs to actually restore from backup and verify that that system is working. Otherwise, you cannot guarantee that it's working. Rule number 10 takes a different tack because it's one of the absolutely unbreakable rules of service delivery. You cannot care more about your client's network than they do. If a client says, I can't afford enough media for me to have a reliable backup, okay, just make sure they understand what that means. If a client says, I'm not going to pay you to come in here and verify that my backup is good, okay, just remember what that means. What you're saying is, you're not going to pay me to make sure that I can recover your stuff when something goes drastically wrong. If a client says, I will not have a backup, or I believe that my RAID system is a backup, which I have to say, I've never heard that from a client. I've heard it from technicians, but I've never heard it from a client. Anyway, if the client says stupid things, it's your job to say, I need you to understand. I understand that you have a budget. But if we can only restore from backup, if we can only test once a year or once every 6 months, that has an effect on our ability to guarantee that we can keep you in business when something horrible happens. And at the end of the day, we spend a lot of time and energy trying to help clients who will not help themselves. And you need to stop doing that. You have a right to make money. You have a right to be profitable. And you do that by providing amazing and spectacular service. And if the client doesn't want it, you can't care more about their network than they do. I hope these tips are helpful. Hey, share this with a friend. Give it a thumbs up. Spread the word if you like this kind of content. I appreciate it. This is Carl Polchuk from Small Biz Thoughts, wishing you the best of luck in your managed service business. Please like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell so you can be notified when we post a new video.